Councillors, item 12.6, response to notice of motion 786, Councillor Deeming. Presenter is Ms. Laura Jo-Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to consider the response to notice of motion 786 by Councillor Deeming. At the council meeting of the 25th of October, council resolved to develop a community awareness campaign in response to the Victorian Government Sex Work Decriminalisation Bill, covering the elements outlined on page 164 of the agenda. The Victorian Government is essentially seeking to decriminalise sex work to ensure that every worker in the industry has the same rights and access to entitlements and protections under law as they would in any other job. In Victoria, sex work is currently regulated under a legalised model, which means sex work is only legal if it takes place under certain conditions set out in the Sex Work Act 1994. Melton City Council was invited by the Department of Justice and Community Safety to make a submission on the Victorian Government's discussion paper on this issue. In its submission, Council outlined its support for the positive aspects of the decriminalisation of sex work as proposed, however, raised concerns that some of the proposed changes could potentially compromise the community if the legislative framework surrounding it was inadequate. Council noted that the management of community dissatisfaction from matters such as compliance are proposed to be largely managed by Council. An overview of Council submission is provided on page 165 of the report, noting in particular the concerns about the level of consultation that the local government authorities and the broader community were subject to by the Victorian Government regarding the draft legislation changes. In response to the notice of motion, the proposed community awareness campaign that's detailed in the report aims to create awareness of the Victorian Government Sex Work Decriminalisation Bill and seek community feedback focused on the following elements to ascertain the community's views on the impact on child safety, impact on community and neighbourhood safety, impact on general neighbourhood atmosphere, impacts on retail and commercial precincts, particularly with regard to general amenity, safety and economic viability. The proposed action plan set out on page 166 of the report essentially details the proposed campaign, which includes sending letters to local members, ministers, and also including a community survey, which would be promoted through a range of media, including social media and local newspapers, with the campaign proposed to commence this week subject to Council approval and conclude with the submission of a detailed report summarising the feedback that would be completed in May of 2022. This action plan forms the basis of the recommendation before Council, which is detailed on page 163 of this report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Does any councillor require any further clarification regarding this report? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With all due respect, I would just like to make note that actually at no time did council ever say that their issues with the legislative changes were around whether or not the framework was inadequate or not. All of us here very clearly stated that we thought that all the safety measures could be given to sex workers and that we wanted sex work to remain in industrial zones. That was what we said. We never at any stage said that there was any kind of regulatory framework that would be acceptable to us that resulted in sex work in homes with children under the roofs or anything like that in residential areas or commercial zones. So I'd just like to make that clear, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deeming. Do I have any other councillor require any further clarification regarding this item? Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Deeming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the motion as put.
Thank you, Councillor Deeming. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Madick.
I would be happy to second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Madick. Does any councillor oppose the motion? Councillor Van der Weyden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I understand that us as a council have already advocated and submitted our...
Sorry, Mr Mayor, point of order. Just with debate, Councillor Deeming
Sorry.
as the mover needs to speak first.
Thank you, Councillor Malik. Councillor Deeming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to refer to the risk analysis prepared by our officer on page 167, which states that Council faces some risk that residents and other members of the community could gain the false impression that Council has influence, authority or decision-making powers in relation to this issue, particularly when draft legislation is so close to it being passed by the Victorian Government, and that may have a negative impact on the Council if legislation passes unchanged. May I just say, Mr. Mayor, that if we do our job well, that will not happen. If we are clear in our communications, that will not happen. If we make it clear that what we are doing is raising awareness about the very, almost 100% certainty that these laws will be changed unamended, and show them that we had advocated against these changes, that we raised the concerns listed, and that if they have any feedback that they would like to give, even though the government is not interested in hearing it, that we will deliver it for them. Nobody's going to be confused. It's a matter of doing our jobs properly. And may I just say, and remind viewers, if in case they do not know, that the changes are not to just decriminalise sex work. Sex work is not illegal. It is perfectly legal to conduct it. It has its own Sex Work Act, and it is to be conducted in industrial zones under very good conditions. If you speak with police officers and other people who have been involved in this industry for many, many years, they say the problems which make sex workers unsafe are the lack of resources with police and the lack of resources with exit strategies for victims of trafficking and women who want to get out of that industry. So there is lots and lots of conflict around this area. We understand that. Our job as a council is going to have to be to communicate clearly, but we have experts in our staff, and I'm sure we can handle that just fine. What we don't want, and what we know from our conversations with residents, is that mothers, fathers, families, grandparents do not want sex work to be conducted out of homes next to their homes, which attracts all kinds of other behaviour, which is undesirable in a residential area. We want our public spaces to be G-rated. We do not want, we want our children and our families to feel safe, and it needs to be a family environment. These activities are perfectly fine in the industrial zone. That was all our council was ever saying, and we raised big concerns over the safety of children, the fact that you are allowed to pay for sex work services with drugs of dependence, because they know that drugs of dependence are often brought in this industry. So they know about the problems that this will bring to residential areas, to commercial zones. It's not going to be good for our community. It's not going to be good for our businesses. And that is why many people suspect that the consultation process was so fast and so surface level. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deeming. I believe we are still in a debate.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Malik.
I guess as the seconder, I'd like to also reiterate my support of this motion. I guess a bit of history. Fiona Patten MP was asked by the state government to lead a review to make recommendations to the Minister for Consumer Affairs Victoria on decriminalising sex work in Victoria. What has come about from this is the Sex Worker Decriminalisation Bill 2021. Some important points for our community to be aware of are the following. It requires the local government laws to not be inconsistent with the policy. In other words, council have no authority to not allow a potential sex worker to set up a business in any area within our community, including in an everyday average street in the community. So it could be possibly your neighbour. Accommodation cannot be refused to persons engaging in commercial sexual services. Does this mean hotels, Airbnbs, residential homes for rent? This is extremely concerning, Mr Mayor. During the period from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m, a person must not intentionally solicit or invite to engage in sex work in a public place that is near the following premises, and this is taken from the actual bill, Mr Mayor. school, educational or care services, children's services, a place of worship. However, after 7 p.m. with this new bill, this would be permitted. So in all other areas excluding this, sex work on the street could be allowed 24 hours a day. It could be at the end of your street, at the end of your avenue, where your kids play. Under Section 39 of the definitions, it explains what a commercial sexual service is, and then goes into detail about the payment methods, including, and this is from the bill, Mr. Mayor, a commercial benefit, a payment or a reward, including the supply of a drug of dependence within the meaning of the Drugs, Poisons and Controlled Substances Act 1981, whether or not the commercial benefit payment or reward is given to the person providing the service or to another person. How is this protecting the sex worker when they themselves may not even be the ones getting paid for their services, not to mention the alarming concerns over the fact that payment can be made in the form of a dependent drug? This is actually in the bill, Mr. Mayor. It then goes into causing or inducing a child to take part in sexual services under Section 42, which does explicitly state that it is illegal and the penalty is imprisonment. However, further in 53H2A, and this is taken from the bill, in a proceeding for an offence against this, it is not necessary for the prosecution to prove that the client knew that the sex worker was a child. And under B, it states that it is a defence to the charge for a client to prove that having taken all reasonable steps to find out that the age of the sex worker, the client believed on reasonable grounds at the time of the offence is alleged to have been committed, that the sex worker was aged 18 years or more. Section 38C, offences to allow a child on premises used for commercial sexual services. 1, explains that no child who is over 18 months of age is permitted to enter or remain on the premises of which the business is carried unless those premises are primarily used as a residential premises. So a sex worker working in her home or his home could have a child over the age of 18 months. When I asked the question at the information forum to explain this, the answer I received was that a child could remain under the same roof, just not in the same room as where the sexual service was being conducted. This is placing children in extreme danger. As a mother, I am extremely concerned about this, Mr. Mayor. Most of our community are unaware of this bill. I know this is a fact because most councillors of ours were unaware of this bill, and most of Victorian councils were unaware of this bill until most recently. This will most likely be passed through by the state government without proper consultation. Lack of community consultation, a common theme in this government, with the local government sector as well as the community in general. It does not protect sex workers, it exposes them to greater harm, it places children at a greater risk, particularly if it is a home business, and it places the community at a greater risk. I commend Councillor Deeming for this notice of motion and support her wholeheartedly for this council to undertake a community awareness campaign and to inform our community as to what the state government is planning on doing without the proper consultation that this bill deserved. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Maidlick. We are still in a debate. Does a councillor who opposes the motion wish to speak? Councillor in the back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as I was previously going to state, that council has already sent letters to ministers, stating their voice on this topic. And for me, I believe that community consultation has occurred, and I think we don't give our residents the benefit of the doubt that they understand what's happening within their municipality, and the outcome of this campaign will actually have no merit in changing the bill. I don't think it's an appropriate use of ratepayer money. We don't have any influence over state government legislation, and you're right, the risk is that it may mislead the community on the role of local government. I believe our ratepayer money and council officer time could be better utilised somewhere else. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor van der Berg. Does any other councillor wish to speak on the motion? Councillor Deeming, I'll allow you to speak the last. I'll give a word now to somebody who didn't. Councillor Ramsey.
How did you know I was going to put my hand up, Mr. Mayor?
I thought I saw your hand.
Oh, I was actually just going to say that there are a lot of things in local government as representatives of our community that we make decisions on that may not be in the purview of local government. But when it comes to things that really cut at the core of community, especially our most vulnerable, being our children, our disabled and our frail, I think we need to advocate. And like we've said before, community consultation should be the cornerstone of the 3 levels of government, and community awareness should be part of the purview of any legislation that goes before the Houses of Parliament or local government for that matter. So this is a survey. People are that are concerned or feel like they need to express their opinion, have got the right to do so. It probably will come in way after the bill has either been moved or accepted or whatever, but it allows our community the chance to express their voice. And to that, and that only, I commend Councillor Deeming and Councillor Maidlick for the notice that's before us now, because it gives them a respectable time frame, because a lot of the things where it comes to community consultation will happen the week before Christmas or the first week in January when everybody's away. This is going to stay on our webpage, and for this community survey will be available till the 31st of March. And I think, you know, if it does upset certain people in our community, they have a right to express it. And the politicians that are making these decisions really should know what our community thinks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ramsey. Councillor Shannon, and then Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also commend Councillor Deeming and Councillor Majlik. Thank you, Councillor Majlik, for going through all of those points from the bill, because I was going to read a couple out myself. Well done. You've covered all the main, very important, horrific things that I can't even believe I read when I read them. I just want to, just say a couple of things, that to put the management of any issues related around this onto council workers is wrong. Council workers aren't trained to go into a premises where there might be whatever issues come along with this. They're not trained for that, and that the police themselves are struggling to cope, as we hear, with a lot of the issues that come up there. And to have children under the same roof over 18 months in another room, again, is wrong. And my question is, what about the children that are under 18 months? Are they allowed to be in the same room with their mother? Another question to pose. I also agree with Councillor Ramsey on the fact that even though this is likely to be passed, our community hasn't had the opportunity to have their voice, and we're giving them that opportunity, and we're actually having our voice as a council on this. And even though our voice might not be able to change or alter the bill, I still like to have my voice on this, because I think it's very wrong. And yeah, just thank you, Councillor Deeming, for what you've done.
Thank you, Councillor Shannon, Councillor Carley, and then Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I just have a question for Councillor Vandenberg. When she stated that she believes that community consultation had occurred in regards to this, what makes her believe that that has occurred? Because I can say that a lot of us councillors, not just here in the City of Melton, but other councils, weren't even aware of it. So I just want to know how she was, or what makes her believe that community consultation in regards to this has occurred.
Thank you, Councillor Carley. Councillor Vandenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as all councillors would know, the state government does undertake community consultation, and then there is the new engage.com that the .au with the state government where residents or councils can, submit their submissions, whether they're against a bill or not. So that would be the community consultation, and residents also have the ability to contact their local MPs and express their opinions on things that are going through Parliament at any stage and any time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Underberg. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very difficult one, but I believe that very few people in the community are aware of it, and I don't think we'll have a great deal of effect on affecting the outcome. However, I do believe that can commend Councillor Deeming for putting this forward to make our community aware of what is actually happening out there that they're not being told of. And it's okay to say there's the option to go to the state government and sign these petitions, whatever, but I've never seen one, and I'm in council. Nobody's spoken to me about it, and for the effect this is going to have on our community, I'm very surprised I haven't heard anything from anybody in my local area. So I don't think the information's out there. So I think it's up to council to at least make people aware this is happening and may be happening very soon in our community. So well done, Councillor Deeming.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Carley.
Mr. Mayor, I know that I have spoken and I asked Councillor Vandenberg a question, but
Oh,
can
well,
I just
listen.
say thank you? I want to say that I agree with this community awareness campaign, and I look forward to the report that will be coming back to this council on May 2022 when our community members have had a say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Carley. Before I go to the mover, Councillor Deeming, do I have any other councillor who didn't speak and who wished to speak on the matter, on the item? Councillor Bush.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to first, I suppose, start off by saying that it is a tough one, and I think every worker deserves the right to feel safe at work, and any legitimate work under our law should and must be protected. I think that's very important, no matter what work people choose to do. I think it's their business, what they choose. My support for officer recommendations on this report is purely on the basis that it will provide a further opportunity for our residents to be engaged and consulted on this issue by its closest form of government. I think people understand that councils are the closest form of government. We work much closer than any other government with our residents on the grassroots level. And I think it's important for our residents to know who is responsible for this bill and where council fits into the big picture. I don't want to receive calls or emails from residents on why council was not the decision maker on this matter, given it always has traditionally had leverage and powers to respond to applications for brothels and the like. That's all I have to say on this matter, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bush. I'll allow Councillor Vandenberg to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in regards to your previous question, Councillor Carley, so I just wish to clarify that residents are able to submit their concerns and what matters to them, and their website was engage.vic.gov.au. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vandenberg.
Thank you, Councillor Vandenberg. And I guess that means it depends whether or not residents know to actually do that, and whether they know that this is coming up, I guess.
Thank you, Councillor Carley. Councillor Deeming, as the mover of motion, you have the right to reply. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say a couple of things. Councillor Vandenberg made the statement that we should not underestimate our residents about whether or not they knew about this bill and had been consulted and had made their submissions. But then you thought that us doing this might confuse our residents about the role of council. Now, I believe you cannot have it both ways. I think there is ample evidence that our residents, and in fact most of Victoria, did not get proper warning about this legislation. There was a consultation period announced, and then it was opened ahead of schedule and shut ahead of schedule. I know that because in my other role as a researcher, I made a submission on behalf of an organisation that has 180,000 members. So I've written a government submission upon this, which is why I knew to bring it to council. Also, I wanted to just comment on something that Councillor Abushi said, which is that all legitimate work should be protected. I just wanted to reiterate the fact that at no point in time did any of the councillors here ever disparage sex workers in any way, shape or form. Their dignity was put in question not a single time. All of us here were concerned about the safety of sex workers. In fact, we had fabulous reports back from our own officers talking about how the risks involved to sex workers would increase under this legislation because there was less oversight, less protection for those sex workers, less resources for them, less powers for the police to come in and protect them. In fact, the oversight was given to our council officers, as Councillor Shannon said, who have no training, no equipment, and no powers under the legislation to do anything about anything. This bill is absolutely immoral. It is terrible. It is not good for sex workers and it is not good for local residents. And saying that is in no way disrespectful of sex workers. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deeming. Councillors' debate has now closed, and I will put the motion to the vote. All councillors in favour of this motion, please raise your hand. Thank you. All councillors against this motion, please raise your hand.
Mr. Mayor, could I please call a division?
Yes, but yes, division has been called. Councillor Deeming called for division, therefore setting aside the original vote. I will put the matter to the vote again. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. Councillor Turner, Councillor Kesic, Councillor Ramsey, Councillor Shannon, Councillor Deeming, Councillor Maidlick, Councillor Carley, and Councillor Bushy. Councillors who oppose the motion, raise your hand. Councillor Wonderback. I declare the motion carried.